Welcome back to the Skylanders Ultimate Nightmare series, where I will play a solo run with every Skylander on Nightmare mode to see which Skylanders and which of their upgrade paths are best. First run up, we got Voodood on the Marauder upgrade path, which allows him to gain 2 more combos. The secondary combo spins around his axe, and the tertiary combo launches his axe head off. You also gain the ability for your axe to deal more damage, and your zip line travels faster and deals more damage as well. Voodood as a whole is a pretty unreliable character in my experience. The first attack, second attack, and third combo miss unreasonably often, as you'll see throughout this run. It's very easy to walk right up next to an enemy and start swinging the axe over and over and just not hit them. Or for you to want to zip line to something and you launch it out, it doesn't grab, or it grabs onto the ground in front of you and pulls you where you're not expecting. It's a bit of a hassle. If you want the spin combo to hit the enemy, you need to make sure they're at the outside of the radius. If they're standing too close to Voodood, the axe head will not hit them. Now the legendary blade upgrade, this is the one that makes the axe do more damage. It increases the damage by so much. Most upgrades which increase your power are like, oh, you go from 24 damage to 27, look, this is a big improvement. But Voodood's damage with the axe almost doubles. But this upgrade increases the power from 26 to 42, which is a significant upgrade. And this also affects the primary combo's final hit, which is about double damage. Voodood's zipline is also upgraded on this upgrade path, as I mentioned, so it allows you to grapple onto enemies, pull yourself in, and then hit them with a higher power axe. Now this sounds great and like it would be a super fun playstyle, but combine that with the axe missing a lot and it's a lot less useful than you might imagine. I must say it does feel fantastic to have a scenario where an enemy is about to slam on you with an attack and then you grab with the zip line onto a wall, you dodge out just in time, but in practice that's not usually what happens. Your zip line's gonna miss and you'll get hit. Voodood's tripwires do not get upgraded at all on this upgrade path, but they still feel pretty nice to use. You'll lay down a trap, and if any enemy ever walks over it, it'll expand a bit, collapse, and damage everyone nearby. I relied on this move quite a bit because of how unreliable the axe felt, but it ended up getting me killed. Next up, we'll take a look at the Elementalist upgrade. Here, the magic tripwires are larger and do increased damage. Magical energy radiates from Voodood, which allows him to counterattack with electricity whenever he gets hit. And whenever you hit something with your axe, it'll do some splash damage to enemies nearby. On paper, at least to me, this upgrade path seems significantly worse. You're trading away a 20 plus damage upgrade on your primary attack. That is a pretty hard sell. Not to mention that counter attack damage is really not gonna save you on Nightmare mode. But I like this upgrade path because the splash damage on the axe is surprisingly useful, and the tripwires are by far Voodood's safest and most consistent move. This is another upgrade which astronomically increases the amount of damage an attack deals, so it's actually kinda nice that Voodood has one of those on both upgrade paths. I should also mention the soul gem Voodood has allows his tripwires to deflect attacks. If you put a tripwire down, you now suddenly have a defense against ranged enemies, which you didn't before. If you're on the other upgrade path, the tertiary combo will launch a projectile, but it does take quite a bit to wind up because you need to do 2 regular swings first. And even though placing a tripwire on its own isn't enough to beat a ranged enemy, it does buy you some time to deal with them. And it's better than using the janky zipline in order to try and dive in on them, and then using the janky axe swing to try and hit them and take them down before they hit you back. The axe swing does paralyze and stun enemies sometimes, but it seems to be randomly. For all the flack I've been giving Voodood so far, he does take down this Goliath Drow actually incredibly quickly. I also thought it was funny that this archer got pushed off the edge by a rogue Chompy. Executioners were a bit difficult to deal with. You have to run in and attack them while they're vulnerable, but get away before they do their circling swing. Without any projectiles, you could use the zipline right before they're about to teleport away as an alternative, because it will hit them and deal damage before pulling yourself in, and then they'll teleport away before you come in next to them so they don't hit you. And you also have the option, like I mentioned before, to drop a zip wire in order to block projectiles, which that upgrade also allows you to block the Bark Demon projectile. And it probably won't come up, but it's nice to know. By the way, Voodood's catchphrase, axe first, questions later, doesn't really make sense to me. Obviously axe is supposed to sound like ask, but then the pun is ask first, questions later, which is not a sentence that makes any sense, so I don't know what the heck it means. Moving along from that, I do want to point out that the primary attack's splash range is really big, much bigger than I expected. It does do less damage than the main attack, but it can help quite a bit to deal with swarms. And without any kind of reliable mobility move, the Ice Bowl becomes difficult. No, the secondary attack does not count as reliable. I kinda just have to skate around and hope I'm able to dodge attacks and be able to kill the enemies soon. I tried deflecting the axe here, but it ended up bouncing off and then straight into me anyways, so maybe not the most reliable attack, continuing the theme for this character. Before we finish up, I do want to mention a strategy I used occasionally. You can only have 2 tripwires at a time, and if you place a third, the first one doesn't disappear, but it activates and would deal damage to enemies nearby, so you could purposely do that in order to get some more damage output, in case the enemies don't want to trigger the tripwire themselves. Overall, Voodood's a really interesting character to me. He's got a lot of moves that feel like they'd be super cool, but they just don't end up working out very well. He's gonna end up placing pretty low on this tier list, unfortunately. Armored Mohawks apparently were too much. Also, be honest, who got tricked into thinking Voodood was gonna pop off thanks to the thumbnail?